Greetings, kindred. Oh, welcome to the new moon. New moon is actually going to take place on the 4th of November. I'm recording this on the 2nd. And what an interesting chart we've got here for the new moon. So, well, I've been seeing some mad numbers lately, as most of you know, I've been seeing 222 since 2016, and since then it's been, over the last 2 years I've been seeing quite a collection of different numbers, 144, 1444. I'm still getting double numbers like 1212, 1313, etc. But I've been getting a lot of 1111s, and as we know, 1111 is the gateway to new beginnings. And it's more spiritually inclined. So, when I see numbers, I really do feel that I'm getting them for the collective as well as, for myself personally. But wow, what a little story we've got here. So, as the new moon begins, our sun and moon will be conjunct at 4 degrees in Libra. Now, Libra is quite an interesting star sign because it's the only star sign that isn't represented by an animal or a human. Libra is the scales. So in ancient mythology, Libra is fairly new to the Zodiac because Libra used to be a part of the Scorpion constellation until, Ixion or Anubis, Moses, actually chopped the scorpion and the claws came off and formed the scales, and Libra and the number 4 actually represents the wheel or Ixion's wheel. So it's very relevant, I feel, that we have the sun and moon at 4 degrees in Libra this new moon, especially since our full moon is going to be a lunar eclipse in Taurus. And then we have another solar eclipse on the 4th of December in the sign of Ophiuchus. And the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse are both going to be powerful portals. And I feel this new moon is preparing us for that. So our sun and moon in Libra, Libra is all about justice, fairness. It's a weighing of the heart against the feather. What are our intentions? What are our true intentions? That needs to be weighed up this new moon. So speaking of Ixion, I haven't spoken about him for a little while, but Ixion is actually at 3 degrees in Sagittarius right now. And we also have Venus, who's at 3 degrees in Sagittarius. Now, Ixion, like I said, represents to me Anubis, Moses. And Venus actually represents both Isis and Nephis. And Nephis in Sumerian is actually Lilith. So the reason why I'm mentioning that is because there is this quincunx aspect between Venus and the Black Moon Lilith, who's actually in Taurus in conjunction with the North Node. So the Black Moon Lilith in Taurus to me represents the Nephis Lilith before her spiritual awakening. The one that was very wounded. At that time she was the great queen. She was so beautiful, so respected. But she was so unhappy. And all the fortunes that she had around her, just wasn't enough to, satisfy her. And that is so typical of Taurus, they need a lot around them, like in luxury, like their comforts, they like to have their comforts around them. With Taurus, their homes are their castles, and it's very rare you'll find a Taurus in like a sloppy home, you know. The homes are normally really quite elaborate or very well maintained. But, you know, with Ceres close by, to me this is all about, you know, all the things that nurture us, you know, when it comes to diet, when it comes to good living, and all that good stuff. So, you know, with the Black Moon Lilith conjunct the North Node actually represents the society that we live in. It's also our destiny, or, you know, things we need to achieve before we leave this earth in an individual horoscope. But when I'm reading for a global, it really does represent the societies that we're living in. So, you know, Venus being both Nephis and Isis, you know, Nephis, Lilith, was the natural mother of Anubis, Moses, and Isis was the adopted mother of Anubis, Moses. And so we've got a little family here in Sagittarius, you know, all bar Osiris, because we have Juno at 0 degrees as well in Sagittarius. And, you know, Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius, and Juno was the wife of Jupiter. So Jupiter in mythology represents Horus, and you know, Horus was a very powerful entity, but also very, you know, very opinionated, very set in his way. You know, he had a big spiritual lesson to learn himself. Although, you know, Anubis always grew up to be quite a humble person. And he was very fortunate to have both his mothers around him, his natural mother, his adopted mother, and his father, Osiris, you know. But, you know, I'm going to get into all that another time in my book, because I've got a whole story to tell you. But I'm just giving you a little scenario here of what I'm seeing. So, you know, Ixion at 3 degrees in Sagittarius is calling us to remember our ancient history. You know, is here to, like, he's brought up a lot already. You know, we've all gone back to the Boston Tea Party times and the French Revolution that happened in the 18th century. So he's already taken us back to that. But I really do feel, you know, with the Ophiuchian energy becoming stronger and stronger, even though at the moment, you know, the sign of Ophiuchus hasn't got any planets in it. I mean, Ophiuchus is preparing himself for the big solar eclipse that will occur in December. And we're going to have quite a few, you know, fast-moving planets, as well as the goddess Vesta in Ophiuchus at the solar eclipse. I really do feel that this is going to be major, and I'm going to be doing a separate video about that. And I've actually asked one of my sisters to join me in on that, simply because we're going to be talking about symbolism as well. So yeah, that should be in the next week or so. So what I'm feeling here is, like, you know, there's this extremism going on. And, you know, it's been going on for a while. We all know what that extremism is about on both sides. You know, both sides of the fence are taking things to the extreme, and what we need to do is find middle ground. Now, I do feel that there's a lot going along. There's a lot going on, I should say, along the lines of, like, foreign policies. Now, we know there is a meeting going on at the moment about the climate crisis, and I say that in quotes. But, you know, there needs to be more transparency. And I just feel that, you know, we need to look at really, I would say do our own research, but look at documents that are relevant, you know, because it's very much been media orientated. All the information coming out doesn't mean to say it's the truth, it doesn't mean to say it's a lie. But if we look at the systems that have been put into place that have the actual factual data there in black and white, then, you know, seeing is believing, or I'd like to think that. Although, you know, I have to say over the last 2 years, maybe seeing isn't believing, you know. Maybe just hearing is believing, I don't know. But, you know, when Neptune moved into Pisces earlier on this year, even though he only managed to get to 1 degree before he retreated back into Aquarius in his retrograde, you know, we were kind of like, you know, envisioning, I think, you know, Neptune in Pisces is good for manifestation, to bring into the reality, you know, makes our manifestation stronger, but we've got to be real about what we can bring through, you know, in the real world, because Neptune can take us completely off planet. Now, I've always said Neptune in Aquarius is all about mental health. And at the moment, Neptune has retrograded back to 23 degrees. 23 adds to the number 5. Uranus is at 14 degrees retrograde in Aries, which adds to the number 5. So I'm really feeling there's going to be some kind of shift going on over the next 2 weeks, and I think it's kind of subtle. It's a subtle shift that's going on in our consciousness, in our psychic awareness, but I don't feel it's going to reveal itself fully until the solar eclipse in Ophiuchus. And you know, it is definitely going to be about the economy. It's definitely going to be about our personal relationships. You know, our personal relationships have really suffered. There's been a lot of division going on and differences of opinion. And, you know, I really do think that's because, you know, when we're so close to someone and we're frightened for them, because, you know, what's going on in the world right now, we are in fear for each other. We are in fear for those we love, if they're choosing a different option from us. And, you know, it's been very, very hard for people to like hold that down, you know. But there's also a lot of aspects around dictatorship, like with Saturn in his own sign of Capricorn. That's very dictatorial. And, you know, it makes Saturn's energy very, very strong. And Saturn does rule, like, you know, the governments of the world, you know, structures that have been put into place. You know, and Capricorn is very kind of like a traditional sign as well, you know, very status quo. And I think what I'm seeing here, you know, I hope I'm not changing the subject or flipping backwards and forwards too much, because there's just so much going on in my head right now. You know, what I really feel here is that people want things to be back to the same. You know, they want their lives back. They want things back to how they used to be. But if they really did think about it, it really wasn't working for us. You know, not us, what I can call the the normal civilian people, you know, the ones that are overworked and underpaid, I really don't feel that we were benefiting from that, because there's been a lot of depression, a lot of mental health, because of the systems that have been in place. You know, struggling to make ends meet, struggling to look after their families, and, you know, it's been really difficult. I mean, what we're seeing with the lorry drivers, I mean, you know, people might think, well, that's a lot of money every week that they earn. And for us kind of people that just do the 9 to 5 thing, that are kind of on, you know, bare minimum wage, yeah, it may seem like that. But the hours they put in and the energy they put in, you know, it's a lot for what they get. So, you know, that's just an example, and, you know, that is why we really shouldn't want things to go back to how they was. Because I do feel that we could move forward in a much more organic way where, you know, we could all lead happier lives. You know, planting our own food and watching our food grow from the land. It's a really beautiful experience. You know, there's been such a distrust of community living. You know, I remember back in the day when I was very, very young in the 60s, you know, people didn't even lock their doors. Neighbours were always running in and out of each other's houses with pots of food. You know, someone just had a baby, all the neighbours would get together and help look after that family until the mum was back on her feet while the father was at work. You know, there's a beautiful side to community living that we've kind of lost. You know? And I do get why. Because there were those out there that took advantage. There were those out there that, you know, became a menace to community living. So, you know, but if everybody was in their self-power, if everybody was happy and content with their lives, then there wouldn't be that need for more. There wouldn't be that need for deviousness. Do you get what I mean? You know, we're a lot more wiser now. You know, because there's like all this stuff coming out about pervertedness, and pervertedness comes in all different forms. You know, when I had my awakening in 1992, I was running around like a mad woman for like a couple of months, and it was only close people I could really talk to, and they really didn't get what I was going through, and I felt totally isolated because what I was shown in my visions was horrendous. And that was at my first Saturn return as well, you know. And here I am at my second Saturn return, seeing all those visions playing out in the world today. But it don't seem half as bad now as it did back then. Because back then, you could never have imagined what is going on today. So back then I was a little bit off key, you know. But the one thing I do remember that, you know, was at the forefront of my anxiety was, you know, we've got to save the children. And, yeah, I get really emotional about that because I can't even remember the vision I had. But all I know, I was so distraught that I blocked it out of my mind. And even though I can't fully remember it. But I remember the feeling, and I remember saying, we've got to save the children. So the children are our future, you know, and we got to look at what type of future do we want for our children. And I can't really look around myself right now and say, yeah, this is it, you know. All this virtual stuff that's going around, you know, with the name changing on Facebook and all this virtual reality stuff, it just triggers me into thinking that all is not well with this world right now. And like, I wish I could go into more detail, but I really think we need to think about that. And, you know, we need to have family dinners around the table. We need to talk to our children. We need to show our children other experiences in life apart from computers and games, you know. And don't get me wrong, I've been a game addict myself. You know, I remember fighting my children for like the game, you know, the Sega Mega Drive back in the day. But yeah, they've got to experience like the real world as well. Because I feel a lot of our mental health is stemming from being in this virtual reality too many hours in a day. So, you know, this may not even sound like an astrological reading right now, but I just wanted to let it flow. I just wanted to say what I'm feeling. And, you know, I've been looking at this chart for a couple of days now, and all I'm seeing really is the same old, you know. I mean, the last time Uranus was at 14 degrees was in direct mode. He's in retrograde at the moment. And that was back in June. Now here in the UK, you know, the lockdown was being extended, and I think June is when we finally came out of the lockdown here in the UK. But there was a lot of issue going around about passports. You know, there was a lot of stuff going on around that at the time. So with Uranus going back now to 14 degrees in Aries in retrograde, I just feel, because here in the UK it's in the 11th house, and in 13 Star Sign Astrology, the 11th house is the public arena. So I just feel there's going to be a reflection on that. And because Uranus is in opposition to our Sun and Moon, who's in Libra, and they're all forming this T-squared formation towards Saturn at 7 degrees in Capricorn. Yeah, I just get, and something, you know, a reflection on what was going on in June with the authorities. And, you know, I'm also getting about churches and congregations coming together, and, you know, I support churches in the sense that they bring communities together. And even though there's been a lot going on around the churches, and it's been pretty dark actually, you know, not everybody, you know, we can't judge everybody by, you know, status or by an organisation, or, you know, we can definitely blame them for covering it all up. But I just feel that there's something more to do with our spiritual values that are going to be under pressure, to be honest. And yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out over the next 2 weeks. So the Black Moon conjunct the North Node. Again, it's a time of like shadow energy, really. So I think as winter's coming into the Northern Hemisphere, I feel a little bit of depression is on the rise again. But, you know, we do have an opportunity to really go within and reflect on our own needs, on what we would like to see regarding our futures, you know. So I just feel there's going to be a little bit of pressure, but the pressure will mount, and you know, coming into our own self-power, like I said, Ixion is here to kind of like wake up more memories or old medicines, old traditions that were organic and helpful to humanity, put it that way. But, you know, it can also be quite dictatorial as well. I think that's the right word. With Venus there, because, like I said, with Venus in quincunx to the Black Moon Lilith in Taurus, which is Nephis Lilith before she had her spiritual awakening, I just feel like we need to get into our spiritual power, into prayer, into chanting, into meditation, into wanting to do good for humanity. So I'm going to leave it there, and I hope it's been helpful. But sending you all peace and much love. Take care.